Hello, Culture Days fam! Today's the big day. Today is the Speakeasy Cabaret, the opening ceremony. I am currently just setting up all the behind the scenes. Um, I can show you my screen. This is the Twitch platform that we're gonna be using for the live stream. I'm so excited to share my work with y'all. Um, both the production that went into this opening night cabaret and the whole festival, to be honest. But also, I'll be performing some spoken word, and yeah, can't wait to share it with all of you. So,
So, for you today, I've prepared 4 different poems. They all touch a little bit on different aspects of how I live within my body, how I embody every part of who I am, and how I exist with this history that lives within me. And I will read them for you. And I will also share a little bit about the process of creating them. Because I like to call myself a storyteller. And it's just finding the best way to tell a story is as fascinating to me as the story itself. So I decided to share a little bit of that with you. This first poem is very short. It's called Work in Progress. Life, full of heavy meaning words I didn't get to define. Daughter, woman, immigrant, black, mixed, survivor. Like uncompleted Scrabble game, forced to fill out gaps, but I have no bowels left. Ink swirls in my bloodstream. Nobody gets to own my body but me. This poem came to me in the past few weeks. I mean, there's so much going on that attacks so many of these words I've been assigned to identify with. So many attacks against womanhood, so many attacks against Blackness, against immigrants. And this is my way of saying, I claim this space. I claim this body that has been divinely given to me. And I will exist in it as an act of resistance of everybody that is telling me I have no right to exist in it. I also would like to call it a call of support to bring to attention that dark-skinned Black women and Black trans folks are dying every single day and nobody's listening. That Indigenous women, Two-Spirit folks, Indigenous men disappearing and nobody's caring about it. So this is my little act of resistance.
so I would like to introduce you all to my wonderful mentor, Carmen Rodriguez. She has been a light during this whole process, 120%. Please check out her website and her books, they're amazing. She is a poet and a fiction writer, and she writes in both English and Spanish, which is something that we're both passionate about. So I am incredibly thankful for BC Culture Days for pairing me with her. And now I would just love for her to introduce herself, just tell you a little bit about her history, and I would love for you to share a little bit about your experience mentoring the mess that I am.
For me, writing is a political act. It's an act of activism. It's an act that allows me to denounce what needs to be denounced, to celebrate the many things that we have to celebrate, remember, to bear witness, to turn darkness into light and deceit into justice. For me, writing is, as I said, is a political act and it's a social act. We couldn't write if we weren't surrounded by a very specific context, or if we didn't have a history behind us, a history that doesn't only involve ourselves. So unlike other writers that I've talked to and that I know, for me, writing is not an individual kind of action. It's a social action. Obviously, I write on my own, but when I'm writing, I'm very aware of all the people and all the events that are inside me and around me. And when I teach creative writing, for example, there is an exercise that I really like to do and that the students really find valuable. I call it echo writing. And basically, they study one piece of work by somebody that they really like. They study it very deeply, not only in the content, but mainly in the style. For example, what makes Gabriela Mistral poem a Gabriela Mistral poem and not somebody else's? What is unique to their voice? Right? What makes Pablo Neruda poem? Why nobody else could be read like he is? Or Garcia Marquez story, right? What is unique about the way that they write? And then I asked them to emulate that particular style. And it's very useful because it's like getting inside somebody else, another writer's way of saying things. You use your own content, your own experience, the story or the words that you want to communicate, but in terms of style, it helps you because you're seeing how another writer has used words, and it helps you to move towards your own way. It's an act of bravery to be published. It's to put yourself out there for everybody to see and to criticize and to like or dislike or learn from or hate or whatever, right? But what I always thought was that as a woman and as an immigrant woman, I didn't have a lot of role models. Or I had role models that were, about a certain area or about something else, but I didn't really have a lot of role models or very few role models that that would guide me. And I felt that I had a responsibility to not be selfish and hoard all these words, and I could and should put them out there. I had no idea if anybody was going to pick them up, but Women's Press in Toronto back then was just starting to a yearly series that they called Poetry, Not a Luxury, echoing Audre Lorde's words. And so my book ended up being the first in that series. And after that, I published a book of short stories and then a novel. And now next year, a second novel will come out. I also, yeah, I'm very excited. I also joined a group of Latin American and Canadian women of all ancestries, and we created a magazine called Aguilarre that was published between 88 and 98, I believe, a bilingual women's magazine that brought together the Latin American diaspora and also many Canadian women to discuss issues important to us, and included literary stuff and sociological stuff. So anyway, yeah, and here we are, 46 years later from having come to Canada, being a mentor to Coral, which I love, and who I love, even though we haven't met in person yet.
Yet. Very important.
Yeah. and very, very happy to be able to share the little that I know, that I've learned. Now that I'm old, I'm happy to see young people like Coral pick up the how do you say that? Anyway, to be bold and to do things, to be active, to write, to organize cultural events. I find it wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and like going back to your idea of the lack of role models, I completely understand. I feel like a lot of the times I have to puzzle together my role model from bits from someone and bits from
Exactly.
someone,
Yeah.
to get together something that resembles to the experience that I'm having.
Yeah.
So I am incredibly fortunate to be able to talk and befriend like an idol, like literally someone that is an immigrant Latin American woman, a writer that just uses their words to be 120% themselves. And I love how you described writing as a social event, because it is. I completely see where you're coming from, as in the sense that we don't write out of nowhere. We're writing from experiences, we're writing from a collective. And sharing that bits, like those bits of individual experiences, just make us realize that we have a whole community backing up our words. So I know that I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to communicate on the regular with someone that is literally a role model for me.